A biome, the largest geographic biotic unit, includes various communities of plants and animals in a particular climate with particular characteristics. Ecosystems are areas within biomes comprised of multiple communities and their non-living physical and chemical elements, including sunlight, water, and temperature. Coral reefs are a unique and diverse marine ecosystem found in warm, shallow waters around the world. They are primarily located in tropical and subtropical regions, typically between 30 degrees north and south of the equator, where water temperatures remain relatively stable throughout the year. They are a vital component of the marine ecosystem and are home to a wide variety of plant and animal species. The largest coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef, runs along the northeastern coastline of Australia, extending out to the margins of the continental shelf, from the Warrior Reefs in the northern Torres Strait for well over 1,200 miles to the Capricorn Bunker Group of reefs and islands in the south. Continental drift brought the northern coastline of Australia into tropical latitudes about 2 million years ago, when the Great Barrier Reef originated with some minor development, but widespread reef development is thought to have begun about 500,000 years ago. Abiotic, non-living, factors of coral reefs include water temperature, salinity, and sunlight availability. Water temperature rising or falling below or above 73 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit can stress coral polyps, causing them to lose algae, or zooxanthellae, which live in the pulpy's tissues, causing bleaching. Changes in water salinity also harm coral as it affects the osmotic pressure regulation and physiology of the coral. Sunlight is necessary for the photosynthesis of algae, which have a mutualistic relationship with coral polyps. Biotic, living, factors of coral reefs include the coral, fish, algae, and other organisms and plants. These organisms create multiple food webs in the ecosystem and are classified as either autotrophs or heterotrophs. Autotrophs synthesize organic compounds from simple inorganic compounds in the environment, and heterotrophs feed on producers or consumers for organic nutrients. A density-dependent limiting factor would be the availability of shelter, which would decrease as a population's density increases, as less and less shelters in coral become available for organisms to use. A density-independent limiting factor would be severe weather like hurricanes. Large and powerful waves from hurricanes and cyclones can break apart or flatten large coral heads, which harms the coral population regardless of population density. Three of the producers found within the Great Barrier Reef are seagrass, phytoplankton, and algae. The primary consumers in this ecosystem are the dugong, which consumes seagrass, zooplankton, which consumes phytoplankton, and parrotfish, which consumes algae. The secondary consumers in this ecosystem are the sea urchin, which consumes zooplankton, phytoplankton, and algae, and clownfish, which consumes zooplankton. Finally, the tertiary consumers in this ecosystem are the sea star, which consumes zooplankton and sea urchins, and the moray eel, which consumes sea urchins and parrotfish. The predator-prey relationship between the dugong and seagrass is beneficial to the Great Barrier Reef ecosystem. The dugong's constant browsing of seagrass encourages regrowth, which ensures a healthy seabed and feeding sites for many other marine species. The predator-prey relationship between the parrotfish and algae is also beneficial to the Great Barrier Reef ecosystem. Parrotfish bite coral and rock bits with algae on them and grind them into white sand in the process of bioerosion, which helps control algae populations and create new surfaces for baby corals to attach to and grow. The energy pyramid depicts the organisms of the Great Barrier Reef food web organized into their respective trophic levels, and, from trophic level to trophic level ascending, approximately 90% of energy is lost to heat. This means that primary consumers only keep approximately 10% of the producer's energy from consumption. The coral reefs would initially and have historically rebuilt when free-swimming coral larvae attach to submerged rocks or other hard surfaces along the edges of islands or continents and bud into large corals. Phytoplankton and zooplankton would also return quickly since they free float in the ocean, and seagrass seeds would also take root nearby as well. Dugong would return with the growth of seagrass, and parrotfish would as well to feed on algae. Sea urchins and clownfish would also eventually return with the prominence of zooplankton increasing in the coral reef. Finally, sea stars and moray eels would return in search of prey, which would be prominent at the reef. Since 1950, half of the world's coral reef systems have been destroyed at the hands of climate change and overfishing. Recovery may be possible, but it will require a concerted effort to protect reefs from overfishing and to ease the brunt of climate change effects. However, UNDP's Ecosystems and Biodiversity Program predicts a bleaker future for the world's reefs, estimating that by the year 2050, more than 90% of the world's coral reefs will perish. And, given that coral reefs support more than a quarter of all marine life on Earth, their destruction will have dire consequences globally.